It's been about a week, and I mentioned in my last video that we were going to weigh my plane this weekend, and we did that yesterday, and it went pretty well. I was a little heavier than I would wanted it to be, but I kind of suspected that would happen. I'll insert some video off to the side of us getting the scales out. I have an A&P mechanic who lives across the runway from me, and he had good scales and has done this for years. So anyway, he came over and we brought all his scales and set everything up. And as you'll see in the video, I couldn't drag the plane up onto up the ramps and onto his scales. I just kept losing traction on this floor. My shoes were just sliding. So I had another neighbor come over and he pushed while I pulled, and we got him up on the scales. So the way I weighed it was, I weighed it just like Sling says. So I had the elevator down, the doors closed, the seats in the full back position. I don't have the wheel spats finished yet, so I just set them on top of the wheels, and I put a piece of tape just to hold them there once I got them up on the scales. I had the front spat is in place, and I had the cowling on. I took it off because I was doing some other stuff. And I had the oxygen tank, which is in the luggage compartment, in for the first weighing. And drum roll, my plane weighed out with the oxygen tank at 1191, which is probably 50 pounds heavier than I just was guessing. So I do not have a parachute. I do have an oxygen system, and as most of you are aware, I have a pretty full panel. So I have basically everything that people put in a Sling TSI, except probably the radar altimeter that's just come out. I did not add that to my build. I was so far along, I didn't want to backtrack. I also do not have the Midwest created, or the Aerospace Innovations created boost pumps in the wings. I may add that later, but for the same reason, I just needed to finish the plane. So I didn't add that. I was so far along, I just decided I didn't want to add any more scope. So anyway, after we weighed it with the oxygen tank installed, I removed the oxygen tank, and then we rolled it off the scales, re-zeroed the scales. I removed the oxygen tank, and then we rolled them back on the scales again. And without the oxygen tank, it was 1180. So it was 1180 without the tank, and 1191 with the tank. Now, as I said, I do not have the parachute. So my CG is forward. So my loading, after we finish the weight and balance, which I'll throw the sheets up there. I'll put them in this video. The CG for mine is probably more forward than everybody who has a parachute. So actually in my loading scenarios, now another thing I'll mention, I left the elevator counterbalance weights on the elevator in the tail, because I thought that, reading some other people's comments online, because if you don't have the parachute here, you would have a forward CG, and that you would need to run around with 20 or 30 pounds in your baggage compartment all the time anyway. So I went ahead and left the counterbalance weights. They can easily be removed later. So If I decide later I want to remove them for some reason, I can. I would just need to reweigh the plane. I'm going to have to reweigh the plane after paint anyway. So maybe we'll evaluate that after I do my my phase 1 flights. But anyway, that was really all I wanted to convey. I'll show you a couple pictures, and I'll throw up the Foreflight. I'll take a screenshot of the Foreflight weight and balance. I did it last night, kind of late at night. So if you see any errors, please let me know. I plan to go over it much closer again. But I'm using the maintenance manual and the POH instructions for how to weigh everything. And then, of course, I had an A&P mechanic helping me. So while he was here, we sort of did a pretty good once-over of the plane. And, you know, I'm getting closer. But one of the things I want to mention is I had to lower this, and I actually brought it in just a little bit. So this is actually a different hose. I ordered one on Amazon because the one I had was just not working to get the angle right, to get this all to tuck in nice. So now it's tucking in like it's supposed to. You can kind of see it's sealed up. Maybe you can see. It's sealed up nice. You cannot see it, but down here is the main, the smaller knock-a-duck that goes for the air intake that goes into the air filter and then the turbo. So I got that. That's all lining up good. Somebody on Facebook was actually asking what people have used. Instead of using safety wire, I actually started to do safety wire, but I thought it was so hard to put in, it was going to be hard to take out. So I ordered these on Amazon. They're just little clips. I had to very slightly enlarge this hole. It was actually because the bracket kind of over closes and it sort of encroaches on the little safety pin hole here. And I did the exact same thing. You can't really see it down here. I have the same exact part for the radiator. So I posted that on Facebook the other day. If anybody's looking, it's actually a link to this exact part, and it seems to work fine. And it's big enough that you can manipulate it with your hands without too much problem. I thought it might be a little too big when they came in the mail, but they're fine. As you can see, it doesn't get in the way of anything. So that works. It was a little bit cleaner than safety wire or me hand making something that may or may not work. Another thing is, I'll zoom in. I installed the Aerospace Innovations little tow bar, whatever, little gadget that keeps you from messing up your paint. So I got that on there on both sides so that you can put the tow bar into there, and it just sticks out a little further and gives you a little buffer for when you get the tow bar so you don't mess up your paint after you get it painted. My front spats went on pretty well. They're pretty clean. I didn't do any real sanding other than just a little bit of a cleanup in the joggle, but didn't have any issues with that. Something else that I did recently is after I got in the plane, let me zoom back out. I'm really tall in the torso, and because on the TSI you can't adjust the rear seat, my head was too high with a headset on. So I took apart my cushion and I actually used an old, an electric carving knife that I had, and I chopped an inch, maybe a smidge more than an inch off the bottom of the cushion foam, and then I rebuilt the bottom seat. A lot of it's Velcro, but it is glued, so I just re-glued it back with my barge cement that I've been using for other things, and it seemed to hold up pretty well. It all Velcros in place, so It's really just for long-term durability. The glue kind of holds it in place a little better. But I don't know if you can even tell, but mine is about an inch lower, which is just to give me room for my headset on top of my head. And long-term, we'll see how that works. And if I feel like I miss having that extra cushion, I can easily get a piece of foam and add it back. It maybe took me an hour to do that. So that was something else that I've done in the recent week or so. And I think that's probably it. But the big news was the weight and balance. I was really curious. Of course, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I primed the inside of all the wings, the longerons. The inside skins are all primed with chromated two-part epoxy primer. And I probably put it on way heavier than I should have. But I should never, ever, ever have to apply corrosion spray or ever worry about corrosion in my plane. But that does come at a penalty of some weight. So anyway, that was it. That was the big reveal. And if anybody has any more comments, I'm curious whatever other people's planes have weighed out. Again, for apples to apples, I have the 915 engine, Airmaster constant speed prop, no parachute, but I do have an oxygen system. I left the counterbalance weight in the tail on the elevator. And I guess that's the major things that kind of people vary from plane build to plane build. But if you have any questions or something, post. If you see anything in my weight and balance, please let me know. I'll be looking over it again later. But I just wanted to kind of see how things were in the sort of graphical Foreflight, just loading some standard loadouts that I would have with fuel and me and my wife on board and maybe, baggage for a weekend, and see kind of how that affected things. But I'm curious how others have weighed out. Obviously, when I get paint, I'm going to add a good chunk more weight. But I really expected this to be a two-person plane for my wife and I with the occasional third passenger. I may occasionally go pick up my my daughter and boyfriend or son-in-law, depending on which daughter, and bring them up here for a weekend. So I did all of those scenarios weight-wise, and everything is good for me. The difference is just how much fuel I can put on board and where you put the bags and stuff. Because, like I said, mine tends to be a forward CG, whereas anybody with a parachute back here is rearward CG. But anyway, hope everybody had a good weekend and everybody else's builds are going well. And talk to you soon.